That night, I understood that a crutch could become proof of something much worse than a fracture. My name is Margaret Stevens. I am 65 years old, and what I am about to tell you changed my life forever. There are moments when a woman knows that something has broken. I am not talking about bones. I am talking about that invisible crack that opens between a mother and her son. It is so silent that at first it does not even hurt. It is just there. But that October afternoon, when my foot got tangled in the living room rug and I fell down the stairs, I never imagined my misfortune would be the beginning of something much darker. I remember the sound. First, the dry thud of my body against the steps, then the crack. That horrible crack in my left leg that left me breathless. And then the silence. A silence that lasted barely 3 seconds but felt eternal. It was my daughter-in-law, Jessica, who arrived first. I heard her running down from the second floor. Her heels clicked against the marble like hammers. "What happened?" she shouted from above. I could not answer. The pain was so intense I could barely breathe. I lay at the bottom of the stairs with my leg bent at an angle that was not natural. Hot tears burned my cheeks. Jessica stopped in front of me. She did not bend down. She did not touch me. She just looked at me from above with those dark eyes that had always seemed cold to me, but now they seemed like something worse. "Margaret," she said with a controlled voice, "are you okay?" I can't move my leg," I whispered between sobs. She sighed, a long, tired sigh, as if my pain were an inconvenience. "Anthony is in an important meeting. We cannot disturb him right now." My son. My only son, Anthony. The man I gave everything to. The boy I woke up every morning with kisses on his forehead for 20 years. The young man I helped pay for college by selling my mother's jewelry. The man who one day came home with Jessica on his arm and told me, "Mom, she is my future." And I smiled, because a mother always smiles when her son is happy, even if inside something tells her that future comes with shadows. "Please call an ambulance," I managed to say. Jessica took out her phone, but she did not dial any number. She just took a picture of me. Yes, a picture. There I was, twisted in pain, my face soaked in tears. "I need to document this," she said coldly. Just in case what I did not understand, not in that moment. 3 hours later, Anthony finally arrived. By then, I had managed to drag myself to the living room armchair, using my arms and biting my lips not to scream. My leg hung useless, swollen purple. My son walked into the house in his impeccable gray suit, his leather briefcase under his arm. He looked at me from the door. "What happened, Mom?" "I fell. I think I broke my leg." Jessica appeared behind him like a shadow. She crossed her arms. "She has been like this for 3 hours. I didn't want to call the ambulance until you arrived." Anthony frowned. Not at her, at me. 3 hours, Mom? Why didn't you move?" "I can't, son. It hurts a lot." He left his briefcase on the floor and walked over, but not with tenderness, with impatience. "Let me see." He touched my leg, and I screamed, a sharp, involuntary scream that was torn from my soul. Anthony pulled his hand back quickly. "She is exaggerating," Jessica said from behind. "She always exaggerates." "I am not," I tried to say, but the pain would not let me finish. Anthony looked me in the eyes, and for the first time in my life, I did not recognize my son in that gaze. "Mom, do you really need to go to the hospital? You know the family insurance is tight this month." I was left speechless. Was he asking me to endure a fracture for money? Jessica sat on the arm of the chair next to Anthony and put her hand on his shoulder. A posture of ownership, of a queen in her territory. "Margaret, we all know that sometimes you get a little dramatic. Maybe you just need to rest." I looked at my son. I waited for him to say something, to defend me, to carry me to the car and take me to the hospital like any son would do for his mother. But Anthony just sighed. "All right, let's go to the hospital." "But tomorrow morning," "Okay, today is already very late and I am tired." They left me there, that night, alone in the armchair, with a broken leg, without medicine, without even a pillow. I heard their footsteps going up the stairs. I heard their bedroom door close. I heard their muffled laughter from the second floor. And in the darkness of that living room, with pain running through every nerve of my body, I understood something terrible. My son was no longer mine, and she had started taking him away from me long before that fall. But what neither of them knew was that this house, those stairs, those high and elegant ceilings where they now slept peacefully, had eyes. That night I did not sleep, not because of the pain, although it was unbearable, but because my mind traveled back, searching for the exact moment when everything began to change. When did I stop being the mother my son hugged every morning to become a burden, an exaggerator? I closed my eyes and saw myself 20 years ago, in the kitchen of our old house, that modest little house in the suburbs with its white-tiled walls and permanent smell of cinnamon and coffee. Anthony was 8 years old. He would come running in from school, throw his backpack on the sofa and shout, "Mom, I'm hungry." I would stop whatever I was doing and make him grilled cheese sandwiches. We would sit together at that chipped wooden table I inherited from my grandmother. He told me everything, his friends, his teachers, his dreams. "Mom, when I grow up, I'm going to be an architect, and I'm going to build you a huge house with a garden and a fountain. And am I going to live there with you?" I would ask him, stroking his hair. "Of course, you are always going to live with me." I laughed, and I believed him, because children always tell the truth. It is later when they grow up when they start to forget the promises they made with a clean heart. My husband Richard died when Anthony was 12, a massive heart attack while driving home from work. He never made it home. That night, Anthony and I hugged on the living room floor, crying together until we had no voice left. And in the middle of that pain, I made him a promise. "Don't worry, my love. I am going to take care of you, always." And I did. I sold the few jewels I had. I worked double shifts as a secretary at an accounting firm. I gave up everything. Outings, vacations, the possibility of falling in love again. Everything I earned was for Anthony, so he could go to a good school, so he would lack nothing. When he finished college, I got a loan to help him open his own architecture firm. I co-signed. I mortgaged the little house in the suburbs. "Mom, I am going to pay you back for everything. I swear," he told me the day he opened his office, and I believed him, because he was my son. 2 years later, the firm started to grow. Anthony was earning well, very well. He came home in expensive suits with a Swiss watch on his wrist. He no longer ate grilled cheese with me. Now he had lunch at fancy restaurants downtown with important clients. One day he arrived excited. "Mom, I found the perfect lot. I am going to build the house I promised you when I was a kid. Do you remember?" I remember I cried with happiness. My boy had not forgotten. The house took 2 years to finish. It was beautiful. 3 floors, a garden with a stone fountain, huge windows, garage for 3 cars. Everything Anthony had dreamed of. The day we moved in, he hugged me in the entrance. "This is your house, Mom. Here you are going to live peacefully for the rest of your life." And I felt blessed. But there is something I learned too late. Big houses fill up fast with things that do not belong to you. And sometimes, those things include people. Jessica appeared 6 months after the move. Anthony met her at a business dinner. She worked in public relations for a real estate development company. She was beautiful, I admit. Tall, thin, with that type of cold elegance that intimidates. She always dressed in black or white. She never smiled too much. The first time he brought her home, I made my famous pot roast, my specialty. "It is very heavy for me," she said, wiping her lips with the napkin. "I don't eat carbs after 6. Anthony laughed nervously and changed the subject, but I saw something in his eyes. Shame. My son was ashamed of me, of my food, of my customs, of my simple way of being. From that day on, Jessica started coming over more often. And with each visit, something in my son changed. He became more distant, more impatient, more foreign. When Anthony told me they were getting married, I smiled, because that is what mothers do. They smile even if inside something whispers to them. Be careful. The wedding was elegant. Too elegant. I wore a pastel blue dress I bought on sale. Jessica wore a designer gown that cost more than everything I earned in a year. During the party, I sat alone at a table in the back. Anthony was busy greeting guests. Jessica posed for photos with her family, people with long last names, serious faces, champagne glasses always full. No one came over to talk to me. At one point, Jessica's mother passed by and looked me up and down. She said nothing, but her look said everything. You do not belong here. And maybe she was right. After the wedding, Jessica moved into the house. Our house. The one Anthony built for me. At first, everything seemed normal, but little by little, things started to change. Jessica redecorated. She threw away my things. My family photographs disappeared from the walls. My flower pots in the garden were replaced by minimalist designs. One day, I looked for the portrait of Richard, my husband, which had always been in the living room. "Where is my dad's photo?" I asked Anthony. Jessica thought it made the space look too old-fashioned. We put it in the basement. We put it in the basement, like trash. I said nothing, because mothers learn to swallow their words so as not to bother their children. But that night I went down to the basement. I searched through dusty boxes until I found Richard's portrait. I wiped it with my blouse, and I hugged it. "Forgive me," I whispered to the photograph. "Forgive me for not defending your memory." And there, in that cold and dark basement, surrounded by the things that once formed my life, I felt for the first time what it means to be alive but invisible. No one saw me anymore, not even my own son. The following months were like walking on broken glass. Every step I took in my own house seemed to bother someone. Jessica had rules. Many rules. I could not use the kitchen after 9 at night because the noise of the dishes woke her up. I could not play music in the living room because it interfered with her concentration. I could not water the plants in the garden in the mornings because the gardener came on Tuesdays, and that was his job, not mine. My space kept shrinking. First, I stopped using the living room, then the kitchen. In the end, I spent most of the time in my room on the 3rd floor. A beautiful room, yes, with a balcony and a view of the garden. But a golden cage is still a cage. Anthony worked more and more. He left before 7 in the morning and returned after 10 at night. On weekends, he had meals with clients or work trips. When I tried to talk to him, he was always busy. "Mom, not now. I have an important call." "Mom, I'm tired. Can we talk tomorrow?" "Mom, Jessica is right. You can't be making noise at those hours." Jessica is right. Those 3 words became the chorus of my life. One afternoon in April, 6 months after the wedding, I went down to the kitchen. I had a craving to make cinnamon coffee, like the one I used to make in our little house. I wanted to smell the cinnamon, the brown sugar melting, that sweetness that reminded me of better times. I put the pot on the fire, added the water, the cinnamon stick, the cloves. I closed my eyes, and for a moment, just a moment, I felt at home again. "What are you doing?" I opened my eyes. Jessica was at the kitchen door, dressed in gray yoga pants and a sports top. She had her hair up in a perfect ponytail. Not a single hair out of place. "Cinnamon coffee," I answered with a smile. "Do you want some?" "It is delicious." She walked over to the stove and looked inside the pot with a frown. "Margaret, this kitchen just got cleaned. Alice comes twice a week and costs a lot of money. You can't be dirtying everything every time you crave something." "It's just a pot. I'll wash it." "That is not the point. The point is that this house has an order, a system, and you are constantly interrupting it." I felt something hot rise up my chest. It wasn't the steam from the coffee. It was something else, something I had been holding back for months. "This is my house too," I said in a low voice. Jessica tilted her head. A small, cold smile appeared on her lips. "Your house, Margaret, let's be honest. Anthony built this house with his money, with his effort. You live here because he is generous, because he loves you, but that doesn't mean you can do whatever you want." Every word was a pin. Small, sharp, precise. I helped Anthony. I sold my things so he could study. I mortgaged my house for his business. Yes, we know. You have told us that story 1,000 times. I gave everything for my son. I sacrificed my life. But tell me something, Margaret. Until when are you going to charge Anthony for having been his mother? Is that not what mothers do? Give without expecting anything in return. I was left speechless, without air. Jessica turned off the stove, took the pot with a cloth and put it in the sink. Stop doing this. Stop living in the past. Stop clinging to your son as if he were your emotional hostage. He has a life now, a wife, and eventually we will have children. You need to understand your place in this family. She left the kitchen, leaving a dense, toxic silence. I stood there, watching the cinnamon coffee spilling down the sink like dark tears. That night, I didn't eat dinner. I locked myself in my room and cried until I fell asleep. When I woke up, it was 3 a.m. The house was in absolute silence. I went down to the first floor, careful not to make noise. I didn't want to bother. I didn't want to interrupt the system. I walked barefoot through the living room, caressing with my fingers the walls I once imagined were mine. I arrived at Anthony's study. The door was ajar. I went in. Everything smelled like him, like his expensive cologne, like leather, like the pipe tobacco he smoked sometimes when he was stressed. On the walls hung his diplomas, his awards, photographs with important clients, with famous architects. I searched among all those images. Was there a single photograph of me, of the two of us, of our life before Jessica? Nothing. Not a single one. I sat in his leather chair and opened his desk drawer. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe a sign. Maybe something that told me I still existed in my son's life. I found papers, contracts, invoices, and at the bottom a yellow envelope. I opened it. Inside were legal documents. I recognized my name, Margaret Stevens, and further down in black and cold letters, assignment of property rights. I read fast, with my heart beating in my ears. It was the deed to the little house in the suburbs, the house I had mortgaged to help Anthony with his business. According to this document, I had voluntarily ceded all my rights over that property to Anthony and Jessica, but I never signed this. I looked closer. There was my signature, or something that looked a lot like my signature. But I never signed a paper like that. My hands were trembling. I put the envelope back in the drawer, exactly how I found it. I went up the stairs like a sleepwalker. When I got to my room, I sat on the bed and looked out the window toward the dark garden. The stone fountain shone under the moonlight. Everything was beautiful. Everything was perfect. But nothing was mine. And in that moment, I understood something terrible. Jessica didn't just want to take my son from me. She wanted to erase me completely. The next morning, I tried to talk to Anthony. I waited for him in the breakfast nook. He came down at 7 as always with his navy blue suit and his briefcase. "Son, I need to talk to you. It's important." "Not now, Mom. I have a presentation with Japanese investors and I can't be late." "But it is about the house in the suburbs." Jessica appeared behind him. She wore an ivory silk robe. She poured herself a glass of water with lemon and looked at me. "Margaret, Anthony is busy. If you need to talk about something, you and I can do it later." "No," I said firmly. "I need to talk to my son." Anthony sighed, the same tired sigh I had heard the night of my fall. "What is it about—" "I found some papers about the old house. They say I ceded my rights." "Mom, we fixed that 2 years ago." "Don't you remember? We needed to consolidate the properties for tax purposes. You signed. We even went to the notary together." "No, I don't remember signing anything like that." Jessica put her hand on Anthony's shoulder. "Honey, your mom is having a lot of forgetfulness lately. The other day she didn't remember where she had left her glasses. Yesterday she forgot she had already eaten breakfast and came down again. Maybe we should take her to a doctor." "I am not forgetting anything," I said with a trembling voice. "I know what I signed and what I didn't." Anthony looked at me with something new in his eyes, something I had never seen directed at me before. Pity. "Mom, you are 65 years old. It is normal for memory to fail. It is nothing to be ashamed of, but you need to accept it." "I am not senile, Anthony. I know perfectly well." "Enough." His voice echoed in the breakfast nook. "I am sick of this, sick of your dramas, sick of your constant complaints." "Jessica is right. You live in the past, all the time reminding me what you did for me, making me feel guilty for having a life of my own." "Yes, Mom. I sold my jewelry. I worked double shifts. I sacrificed everything. You know what? I already paid you back. I gave you this house. You have a roof, food, everything you need. What else do you want?" Tears began to roll down my cheeks. "I just want you to listen to me. I don't have time for this." He took his briefcase and walked out the door. Jessica looked at me for a moment before following him. In her eyes, I saw something that froze my blood. Victory. I was left alone in that huge breakfast nook, surrounded by marble and stainless steel, with the morning sun coming in through the windows. And I felt lonelier than ever in my life, because you can be surrounded by luxury, by beauty, by everything material. But if the people you love look at you as if you were a burden, you are completely alone. That afternoon, I walked through the house in silence. I touched the walls. I looked at every corner, and I understood something with chilling clarity. This was not my house. It never was. I was just a guest who had overstayed her welcome, and now someone was preparing my exit. After that argument in the breakfast nook, something changed in me. Or maybe it would be more honest to say something broke. I decided the best way to survive in that house was to become invisible. If my presence bothered them, then I would disappear. I would become a silent ghost who didn't make noise, didn't interrupt the system. I started waking up at 5 in the morning. I went down to the kitchen before anyone else, prepared my coffee in silence, drank it fast, and washed everything until not a drop of water remained in the sink. I went up to my room before Anthony or Jessica woke up. For breakfast, I didn't go down anymore. I kept simple crackers and tea in my room. That was enough. I made my lunch at 3 in the afternoon when Jessica went to the gym and Anthony was at the office. I heated something fast, ate standing next to the refrigerator, washed the plate 3 times to make sure no trace remained. I avoided dinners completely. I stayed in my room reading old magazines or watching through the window how the sun set over the garden I once thought would be mine. Sometimes in those long and golden sunsets, I asked myself, when did I become this? When did I stop being Margaret, the strong woman who raised her son alone to become Margaret, the annoying old woman who was in the way? But the answers hurt too much, and I was already too tired to keep hurting. One afternoon in May, 3 months after the argument, I was in my room folding clothes. It was Thursday. On Thursdays, Alice the housekeeper came, but Jessica had given her instructions not to go up to the 3rd floor. Mrs. Margaret prefers to clean her own space, she told her. A lie. But I did not contradict her. I heard someone coming up the stairs. Slow, heavy steps. It was Anthony. He knocked on the door. "Mom, can I come in?" I hurried to hide the crackers I had on the bed. "Yes, come in, son." He entered with his hands in his pockets. He was wearing a burgundy sweater I had given him 2 Christmases ago. Seeing him with that garment gave me a small, foolish hope. Maybe there was still something left of the Anthony I knew. "How are you?" he asked, but without looking me in the eyes. "Good, son. You?" "Tired. A lot of work." He sat on the edge of my bed. I sat on the desk chair, keeping distance. I had learned not to get too close, not to suffocate with my presence. "Mom, I need to talk to you." My heart sped up. Something in his tone told me this wasn't going to be good. "Sure. Tell me." "Jessica and I have been thinking about the future, about us." I nodded in silence. "We want to have children, soon. And this house, although it is big, needs and adjustments. The 3rd floor would be perfect for a playroom and a room for the baby. It has good light, ample space." I understood where this was going before he finished speaking. "So we thought maybe it would be good for you to have your own space, something more appropriate for you." "Appropriate?" I repeated the word as if it were foreign. "Yes, there are some very nice residences near here, for seniors. They have gardens, activities, nurses 24 hours a day. You could make friends, have a social life. Here you are very lonely, Mom, locked in your room all day." I felt the floor open under my feet. "Are you asking me to leave? It's not that. We are just thinking about what is best for everyone. For you, too. You are going to turn 66. You need to be with people your age, and we need our space as a couple, as a future family." Anthony, you built this house for me. You told me I was going to live here for the rest of my life. And then you can visit us whenever you want. It's not like we are kicking you out. It's just a transition, something natural. Natural? The word came out like a choked scream. Natural is you taking me out of my house to give my room to a baby that doesn't even exist yet. Anthony stood up. There was no longer softness in his face. You see, Mom, this is why it is difficult to talk to you. You turn everything into drama. You personalize everything. We are trying to plan our future, and you only think about yourself. I only think about myself. I stood up too. Anthony, I gave up everything for you. Everything. And now you tell me I am selfish for wanting to have a place in the life of my only son. Enough. Enough of charging me for every single thing you did. Do you think I don't know? Do you think I don't carry that guilt every day of my life? Mom sold her jewelry. Mom worked 2 shifts. Mom mortgaged her house. I know, but I didn't ask you to do it. You decided to sacrifice yourself. I was a child. His words were like knives stabbing one after another. You are right, I said with a broken voice. You were a child who needed to eat, study, have a future, and I was your mother. It was my responsibility. But I thought that when you grew up, when you were successful, when you had everything I couldn't give you as a child, you were going to remember. Not to pay me back, just to see me, to not forget that I existed. Anthony closed his eyes, breathed deep. I am not forgetting you, Mom. I am just asking you to understand that my life changed, that I have other priorities now. And I stopped being a priority. Silence. A silence so long and painful that it was clearer than any answer. Think about it, he finally said. We visited 3 residences last week. They are all very nice. I'm going to send you the brochures. Take your time, but not too much time. Jessica wants to start with the remodeling in June. He left the room, closing the door softly, as if softness could erase the violence of his words. I stayed standing, motionless, watching the closed door. Then I collapsed on the bed and cried. I cried in a way I hadn't cried since Richard died. I cried until I ran out of tears, without voice, without anything but an immense emptiness in my chest. That night I couldn't sleep. I spent it sitting by the window, watching the stars appear one by one in the dark sky, and I asked myself questions I never thought I would have to ask. At what moment did it become so easy for my son to let me go? Was there a specific day when I stopped mattering to him, or was it little by little, so slowly that neither of us noticed, until it was already too late? The next morning, I found the brochures under my door. 3 residences for seniors, all with names that sounded pretty, but deep down, they meant the same thing. Place where annoying old people are stored. I opened the first one. Golden years where the golden age comes to life. Photographs of elderly people smiling in perfect gardens, playing cards, painting watercolors. They all looked happy. They all looked at peace. They all looked lonely. I closed the brochure and put it on the desk next to the other 2. During the following days, I didn't talk about the subject with Anthony again. He didn't mention it either. But the tension in the house was palpable. You could breathe it in the air like humidity before a storm. Jessica, for her part, began to go up to the 3rd floor. She arrived with her design notebook, her tape measure, taking measurements, making notes. Don't worry, Margaret. I am just looking at options, she would say with that cold smile that never reached her eyes. One day I found her measuring my room while I was inside. What are you doing? Oh, excuse me. I thought you had gone down. I was just verifying that a crib and a changing table fit here. Yes, it fits perfectly. We can even put a bookshelf for the toys. She spoke about my room, my space, as if I no longer existed, as if I had already left. Jessica, I still live here. For now, she answered without looking at me, writing something in her notebook. That night I went down to dinner. I don't know why. Maybe out of pride. Maybe because something in me refused to continue being invisible. Anthony and Jessica were in the dining room, eating pasta with white wine. The table was set only for 2. "Good evening," I said from the entrance. Both looked up, surprised. "Mom, we didn't know you were going to have dinner," Anthony said. "I live here. I can still have dinner in my own house, right?" Jessica wiped her mouth with the napkin. "Sure. Let me set an extra plate." She got up and went to the kitchen, returned with a plate, silverware, and a glass. She put them in front of me without saying a word. I sat down, served pasta on my plate. The silence was dense, uncomfortable. "How was your day?" I asked Anthony. "Good, busy." "Are you still on the Towers project downtown?" "Yes." Monosyllables. My son answered me with monosyllables as if I were an annoying stranger. Jessica drank from her wine and looked directly at me. "Margaret, did you see the brochures we left you, Ben? Yes? And what did you think? I am not interested in any of them." Anthony left the fork on the plate with a sharp clatter. "Mom, you can't keep postponing this." "I am not postponing anything. I simply am not going to leave." "It is not your decision," Jessica said with icy calm. "Excuse me. This house is in Anthony's name and mine. You live here because we allow you to. But if we decide it is no longer functional for our family, you have to accept it." I looked at my son, waiting for him to say something, to contradict her, to defend me. He said nothing. "Anthony, is that true? Is that how you see me, as someone who lives here because you allow it?" He didn't look me in the eyes. "Mom, we just want what is best for everyone, and this situation is not working. You spend your time locked up, sad, fighting with us. In a residence you would be better off. I say it for your own good." "For my own good," I repeated slowly. "Or for yours?" "Both," Jessica said. "It doesn't have to be a conflict. It can be a friendly transition, peaceful, civilized." "And if I don't want to leave?" Jessica and Anthony looked at each other. Something passed between them in that look, something they had already talked about before. "Then we will have to take other measures," Jessica said. "What measures?" "Legal ones." The word fell like a stone in still water. "Are you threatening me?" "It is not a threat. It is a reality. This house is ours, and if you force us, we will look for the legal way for you to leave." I stood up so fast the chair fell backward. "You are a snake." "Margaret." "No, let me speak. You arrived at this house that I helped build. You got into my family. You brainwashed my son so he sees me as a burden." Jessica stood up too. There was no trace of calm left on her face. "I didn't brainwash anyone. I just opened his eyes. I made him see that his mother was an emotional manipulator who uses the past as a weapon, who has him tied with guilt, who doesn't let him grow." "That is a lie." "Really? Then tell me, Margaret, how many times have you reminded Anthony of everything you did for him? How many times have you used your sacrifices to make him feel guilty? How many times have you cried to get what you want?" "Enough!" Anthony's voice thundered in the dining room. "Both of you, enough!" But it was already too late. The words were spoken. The truth, or what everyone believed was the truth, was on the table like a corpse. Anthony looked at me with tired eyes. "Mom, please, go to your room. Are you kicking me out of the table? I am asking you to go up, please." I looked at my son, at this 38-year-old man, successful, well-dressed, with a beautiful house and an elegant wife, and I didn't recognize him. This was not the boy who cried in my arms when he had nightmares. This was not the young man who hugged me crying the day his father died. This was not the man who promised to take care of me always. This was a stranger, and strangers don't hurt as much when they reject you. I left the dining room without saying anything else. I went up the stairs slowly, clinging to the railing. My heart was beating too fast. My chest hurt. When I got to my room, I locked the door. I sat on the floor, against the door, and hugged my knees, and there, in that position of a scared child, I understood something fundamental. No matter how much I held on, no matter how much I fought, I had already lost my son. Jessica had won, and I was just an obstacle they needed to remove to be happy. That night, the sky filled with dark clouds. It began to rain, a strong, angry rain. That beat against my window like fists demanding to enter. I stayed awake all night, listening to the storm, and for the first time in my life, I wished to disappear, to simply cease to exist, so everyone could move on without the burden of dealing with me. The days after that dinner were strange, silent, as if the whole house was holding its breath. Anthony left early and returned late. Jessica spent hours in her study on the second floor, talking on the phone, organizing things I didn't understand. Sometimes I heard her laugh, a light, victorious laugh. I stayed in my room, ate crackers and tea, read the same books over and over again without retaining anything they said. Words passed before my eyes like meaningless shadows. One afternoon in early June, I decided to go down to the garden. I needed air. I needed to feel the sun on my face, even if only for a few minutes. The garden was beautiful. The roses I had planted 2 years ago were blooming in red and white tones. The stone fountain sounded with that constant murmur that had always seemed comforting to me. I sat on the wrought iron bench under the willow tree, closed my eyes, breathed deep. For a moment, just a moment, I felt peace. Margaret. I opened my eyes. Jessica was in front of me, with her tablet in her hands. She wore a white linen dress and gold sandals. Perfect, as always. We need to talk. I have nothing to talk about with you. Well, I do have a lot to talk about with you, and you better listen. She sat next to me without asking for permission. Anthony is very stressed. His blood pressure is high. His doctor prescribed medication for anxiety. Do you know why? I didn't answer. Because of you. Because of this unsustainable situation. He loves you, Margaret. That is why he can't force you to leave. But that love is making him sick. And I am not going to allow you to destroy my husband's health just because you are selfish. I am not selfish for wanting to have a place in my son's life. Yes, you are. Because that place you want no longer exists. Anthony grew up. He has a wife. Soon he will have children. And you refuse to accept that your role in his life changed. You are no longer the center of his universe. You are no longer his priority. And that kills you, doesn't it? Every word was precise, calculated, designed to wound. I know what you are doing, I said in a low voice. I know you are trying to distance me from him. Jessica smiled, a small, almost imperceptible smile. I don't have to do anything. You are distancing yourself all alone. Every time you cry, every time you complain, every time you remind him what you sacrificed. You push him further away. And when he finally leaves, it is not going to be my fault. It is going to be yours. She stood up. You have until June 30th, 1 month, to choose a residence and move out. If you don't do it voluntarily, we are going to start a legal process. And believe me, Margaret, you don't want us to get to that. Legal process. With what argument? With the argument that you are an elderly person with memory problems who represents a risk to herself and others. We already have documentation of your forgetfulness. We already discussed the situation with a lawyer specialized in family law. It won't be difficult. I felt the world tilt under my feet. That is a lie. I don't have memory problems. No. Then do you remember signing the transfer of rights to your house because 3 months ago you swore you didn't remember it? Because I never signed that. There it is. You see, you lose your memory. You forget important things. That is worrying in someone your age. A judge would understand perfectly. She turned around and started walking toward the house. 1 month, Margaret. Don't waste any more time. I watched her walk away, with her white dress waving slightly in the breeze, like an angel. But angels don't destroy families. Angels don't lie. She was something else. That night, I couldn't sleep. Jessica's words spun in my head, like furious wasps. Memory problems, risk to herself and others, legal process. Could they really do that to me? Declare me incompetent, take away my dignity, my autonomy, my right to decide over my own life. I got out of bed at 3 a.m, went down to the first floor, careful not to make noise. I needed water. I needed to think. When I passed Anthony's study, I saw light under the door. He was there, at those hours. I got closer, heard voices. Anthony was talking on the phone. I know it is wrong to listen to other people's conversations. I know. But in that moment, something told me I needed to know what was happening. I stayed by the door, holding my breath. No, she hasn't left yet. Yes, I know. We already told her she has until the end of the month. No, she is not going to sign voluntarily, I am sure. Then we will have to proceed with Plan B. Yes, with the medical certificate it will be enough. I don't like it. But it is the only way. She won't understand the easy way. My heart beat so hard I thought I was going to hear it. Jessica already spoke with Dr. Evans. He is willing to sign the document. It is not illegal if she really has cognitive problems. And well at her age, who is going to doubt yes? Exactly. Once we have the declaration of partial incapacity, we can proceed with the eviction. No, it is not eviction. Technically, it is an assisted relocation. Look, I know it sounds ugly, but it is best for everyone. She can't stay here. Jessica is pregnant. We just confirmed it yesterday. We can't raise a baby with this tension. I covered my mouth not to scream. Jessica was pregnant, and my son, my only son, was planning to declare me incompetent to get me out of the house, with a doctor willing to lie, with false documents, with everything prepared. I went up the stairs as fast as I could, entered my room, locked it, sat on the bed shaking. It wasn't paranoia, it wasn't exaggeration, it wasn't drama, it was real. They were conspiring against me. And worst of all, my son knew. My son was organizing it. The man who grew in my arms. The man who promised to take care of me always. The man who wept on my shoulder the day his father died. That man was now willing to destroy me. I spent the rest of the night sleepless, thinking, calculating, trying to find a way out. Who could I turn to? I didn't have close friends. I had dedicated my entire life to my son, and I had neglected other relationships. My family was scarce, a distant cousin with whom I spoke once a year. If that. A lawyer. With what money I had no income, no savings. Richard's pension had ended years ago. Everything I had was in Anthony's name. I was trapped, completely trapped. The next morning, I decided to do something I had never done before. Check Anthony's email. I waited for him to go to work. Jessica had left early for an appointment with her gynecologist. The house was empty except for Alice the maid who was cleaning the second floor. I went down to the study. My heart was beating so hard I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I opened Anthony's laptop. It didn't have a password. It never had. Anthony was always careless with those things. I opened his email. I searched for messages from the last few months, and there it was. Everything. Emails with Jessica planning Mom's transition. Emails with Dr. Evans discussing the cognitive evaluation certificate. Emails with a lawyer named Mr. Miller about assisted relocation processes for seniors. And an email that froze my blood. From Jessica Stevens to Anthony Stevens. Subject Final Plan. Date June 8th. Love, I already spoke with Mr. Miller. He says that with Dr. Evans' certificate and the documentation of forgetfulness we have been logging there will be no problem. The process can take between 2 and 4 weeks. Once we have the declaration of partial incapacity, your mom won't be able to legally oppose the relocation. The Golden Years residence has a space available starting July 15th. I already secured the spot with a deposit of $1,000. As soon as she leaves, we can start the remodeling of the 3rd floor. The architect already has the plans ready. Everything is going to turn out perfect. Love you. Jay. I read the email 3 times. Every word was a nail in my heart. They didn't just want to get me out. They had everything calculated, with dates, with money, with professionals willing to lie. And the worst part, they called it Final Plan, as if I were a problem that had to be solved, an obstacle that had to be removed. Not a person, not a mother, a problem. I printed the email. I printed all the related emails. I left the study with the folded sheets under my blouse. I went up to my room just when I heard Jessica entering through the front door. Margaret, are you home? I didn't answer. Margaret. I heard her heels going up the stairs. She reached the 3rd floor, knocked on my door. Margaret, I know you are there. I hid the papers inside my Bible. The only thing Jessica would never touch. I opened the door. "What do you want?" She smiled. But there was something different in that smile, something I hadn't seen before. "I wanted to be the first to tell you. I am going to be a mom. I am 6 weeks pregnant." She placed her hand on her belly with a theatrical gesture. "Anthony is happy. He always wanted to be a father, and I always wanted to give him that happiness. So imagine Margaret. Soon this house is going to be filled with baby laughter, with toys, with new life. Isn't it beautiful?" I stayed silent. "Of course, for that," she continued, "we need space, peace, a calm and positive environment. We can't have tensions. Do you understand me?" "I understand you perfectly." "Good, because I know that deep down you want the best for Anthony, and the best for him now is for you to leave. That way he can focus on his new family, on his son, on his future." "And what am I, his past?" Jessica tilted her head, thoughtful. "No, Margaret, you are not his past. You are a paid debt. He already gave you everything he owed you. House, food, roof. He did his part. Now it is time for you to do yours. Let him go." "A paid debt," I repeated slowly. "That's right, and paid debts are not collected twice." She turned around and started going down the stairs. Before disappearing, she turned back. "Oh, by the way, Dr. Evans is going to come tomorrow to do an evaluation. Just routine, age things, nothing to worry about." And she left. I stayed standing in the doorway of my room. Dr. Evans, the evaluation, the fake certificate, everything was in motion. But now, I knew. I had the evidence, the printed emails hidden in my Bible, and for the first time in months, something woke up inside me. It wasn't hope. Not yet. It was something more primitive, more visceral. It was survival instinct. If they were going to destroy me, they wouldn't do it without a fight. Because it is one thing to surrender when there is no way out. And another very different thing is to let yourself be trampled when you can still get up. That night, I took the papers out of the Bible and read them over and over again. I memorized dates, names, exact phrases. I didn't know yet what I was going to do with that information, but I knew it was the only thing I had, my only weapon. And when you are cornered, when they take everything from you, when they erase you even from the life of the only being you loved above all things, even the weakest finds strength to defend herself, even if that defense hurts, even if that defense costs everything, even if that defense means accepting that the war has already begun, and that this time I was not willing to lose in silence. Dr. Evans arrived at 10 in the morning the next day. He was a man of about 50, with thick-rimmed glasses and a professional smile that didn't reach his eyes. Jessica received him at the door as if he were a guest of honor. "Doctor, so good you could come. I appreciate you making this space in your schedule." "No problem, Mrs. Stevens. Anthony is an old friend. Anything his family needs. With pleasure." I was sitting in the living room, waiting. I had decided not to resist, to let them believe I knew nothing, that I remained the naive old lady they could manipulate. "Margaret," Jessica said with a sweet fake voice, "look who came, Dr. Evans. He is just going to ask you a few little questions, nothing invasive, just to make sure you are in good health." The doctor sat in front of me, took a folder out of his briefcase. "Mrs. Margaret, good morning. How are you?" "Fine, doctor." "I am glad. Well, let's do a basic cognitive evaluation, just simple questions." "Okay." I nodded. "What day is today?" "Thursday, June 10th. "Perfect. What year are we in?" 2025. "Excellent. Who is the president?" I answered correctly. "And the next 10 questions, too. Names, dates, simple math operations. Everything correct." I saw how Dr. Evans frowned. This was not going as he expected. Jessica, standing behind the armchair, crossed her arms. Her face no longer showed that feigned sweetness. "Doctor, ask her about more specific things, about her recent memory." "Sure. Mrs. Margaret, do you remember what you had for breakfast today?" "Tea with crackers, in my room. And yesterday?" "The same." "Do you remember any important conversation you have had in the last few days?" I looked Jessica directly in the eyes. Yes, my daughter-in-law informed me that she is pregnant, and that they need my room for the baby. That is why they want me to go to a residence. Dr. Evans cleared his throat, uncomfortable. I see. And how do you feel about that? Do you want the truth, or what they expect me to say? There was a tense silence. The truth, of course. I feel betrayed, used, discarded. This house was built with my money, too. I mortgaged my only property so my son could start his business, and now they are kicking me out because I am in the way. Jessica intervened quickly. Doctor, do you see what I tell you? She has episodes of paranoia. She believes we are kicking her out when we only want her well-being. She believes we stole her house when she voluntarily ceded her rights years ago. I never ceded anything voluntarily, I said with a firm voice. You see, Jessica insisted. She doesn't remember signing. She doesn't remember going to the notary. Those are clear signs of cognitive deterioration. Dr. Evans wrote something in his folder. Then he looked at me with a serious expression. Mrs. Margaret, have you had trouble remembering where you leave things? Have you gotten lost in familiar places? Do you forget names of close people? No. Have you had trouble cooking or performing daily tasks that you used to do without problem? No. In fact, I cook perfectly, but they don't let me use the kitchen because I interrupt the system of the house. Margaret, that is not true, Jessica said with a tone of theatrical tiredness. No one forbids you to cook. It is just that sometimes you forget to turn off the stove. It is dangerous. That is a lie, I answered calmly. I have never left the stove on. 2 months ago you did. I had to go up to tell you. You could have caused a fire. That never happened. You see, doctor, she doesn't even remember recent incidents. It is clear that her memory is failing. I stood looking at her. Jessica was lying blatantly in front of a doctor, inventing incidents that never occurred. And the doctor wrote it all down as if it were true. I felt the rage rise up my throat like lava. Dr. Evans, I said slowly, controlling my voice, how much are they paying you for this? He looked up, surprised. Excuse me. I asked you how much they pay you to lie on a medical certificate. Jessica let out a nervous laugh. Margaret, please, no one is lying. The doctor is just doing his job. His job is to diagnose real illnesses, not invent them. Dr. Evans closed his folder. Madam, I understand this is difficult for you. No one wants to accept they are losing faculties, but denial is part of the process. Your family is worried. They only want to help you. My family wants my room to remodel. And you are willing to sign a fake paper for that to happen. The atmosphere became tense, heavy. Jessica took a step forward. Doctor, I think that is enough for today. As you see, she has episodes of aggression, too. She accuses people of conspiring against her. It is part of the paranoia. The doctor stood up. I am going to recommend a deeper evaluation with a specialized neurologist to have a more precise diagnosis. And will that neurologist also be a friend of the family? I asked. Dr. Evans did not answer. He took his briefcase and headed to the door. Jessica, I will call you later. We need to talk about the next steps. After he left, Jessica remained standing in the middle of the living room, looking at me with a mixture of frustration and contempt. What do you think you achieved with that? Do you think you saved yourself? The only thing you did was demonstrate exactly what we needed. That you are hostile, paranoid, and you don't cooperate. That can also be included in the report. Include it, and I will include the emails I printed from Anthony's computer. Jessica's face paled. Only a second, but enough for me to know I had hit the mark. What are you talking about? You know perfectly well what I'm talking about. The emails between you and Anthony, between you and Dr. Evans, between you and the lawyer, the whole final plan to get me out of here. Jessica clenched her fists. Were you spying? I was defending myself. Those emails are private. You have no right. Right. You talk to me about rights, you who are planning to declare me incompetent with fake documents. Jessica breathed deep. When she spoke again, her voice was cold as ice. Listen to me well, Margaret. You can have those emails, you can print them, you can show them to whoever you want, but no one is going to believe you. You're a 65-year-old woman without money, without friends, without close family. We are a successful couple, with resources, with contacts. Who do you think a judge is going to believe? Whoever has the evidence. Evidence can be explained, can be contextualized. We will say you were spying, that you manipulated information, that your paranoia made you misinterpret private conversations, and your behavior today, confronting the doctor, accusing him of fraud, only reinforces our case. She was right. And the worst part is that I knew it. But I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me crumbled. Do what you have to do, Jessica. But I am not going to sign anything. I am not going to leave voluntarily. And if you force me, I am going to fight. Well, prepare to lose, because this war is already won. She went up the stairs with firm steps. I heard her enter her room. I heard her voice talking on the phone, probably with Anthony, probably reporting everything that had happened. I was left alone in the living room. And for the first time, I felt something bigger than sadness. I felt clarity. I had lived all those months thinking that if I made myself small, invisible, submissive, maybe they could love me again. Maybe they could see my worth. But now I understood. No matter how small I made myself, no matter how much I humiliated myself, to them, I was no longer a person. I was a burden, an old piece of furniture that had to be taken out, and against that there was no submission that worked. I went up to my room, took the printed emails out of the Bible, read them again. Jessica was right about something. Legally, I was at a disadvantage. I didn't have money for a lawyer. I didn't have family to back me up. I didn't have a way to prove they had forged my signature on the transfer of rights, but I had something they didn't expect. I had dignity, and even if they took the house, even if they threw me on the street, even if they declared me incompetent, they weren't going to take that away from me. That night, Anthony came home around 11. I heard his voice downstairs, talking to Jessica, low, urgent voices. Minutes later, he knocked on my door. "Mom, open up. We need to talk." I opened. Anthony entered. He looked tired, deep circles under his eyes, loosened tie, messy hair. "Why did you say those things to Dr. Evans?" "What things?" "The truth." "You accused him of fraud, Mom. Do you have any idea of the trouble that can cause—" "Trouble for whom? For him who was willing to falsify a diagnosis, or for you who contacted him to do it?" Anthony closed his eyes. "Mom, no one is falsifying anything. We are worried about you. We really believe you need help." "Lie." "It is not a lie." "Yes, it is. I read the emails, Anthony. All of them. The final plan, the dates, the deposit paid at Golden Years, the remodeling plans. Everything was planned before that doctor set foot in this house." Anthony opened his eyes, looked at me with something I couldn't decipher: guilt, rage, shame. "Did you check my computer?" "Yes." "That is invasion of privacy, and planning to declare me incompetent with fake documents is a crime. Do you want us to talk about legalities, son?" He ran his hands through his hair. "Mom, this didn't have to be like this. If you simply accepted going to a residence, none of this would be necessary. But you refuse. You cling, and you force us to take measures." "Measures, is that what you call it?" "Measures. Yes, because there is no other way to make you understand that you can't be here anymore. Why, tell me why with such urgency you need me to leave?" "Because Jessica is pregnant. Because we are going to be parents. Because we need our space. Because this house is small for 3 generations. This house has 3 floors, 11 rooms, 3 full bathrooms. It is not small. It is huge. What is small is your heart." The verbal blow left him speechless for a moment. "How dare you? How do I dare? How do you dare, Anthony? I gave you everything. Everything I had. I sold my mother's jewelry. I worked until I got sick. I mortgaged my house. And for what? So 30 years later, you would kick me out with lies and fake documents. Enough of reminding me what you did. Enough of making me feel guilty. I didn't ask to be born. I didn't ask you to sacrifice yourself. You decided it, and now you want to charge me for it the rest of my life." His words went through me like bullets. "I never charged you anything. I just wanted you to love me, to see me, to not forget me." "I didn't forget you, but I can't live carrying your emotional weight either. I have a wife. I am going to have a son. I need to focus on my own family, and you have to learn to live your own life, without me." "Without you," I repeated slowly. "All my life has been with you, for you, and now you ask me to learn to live without you." Yes, a single word. But it was enough to break something that was already cracked for months. "Then I have nothing to do here," I said with a broken voice. "Mom, no. You already said what you had to say. I already know how you feel. I already understood that I am a burden, an emotional weight, an obstacle for your new, perfect family." "I didn't mean it like that. But you said it, and words cannot be erased, Anthony. They stay. They are engraved. They rot inside one." I turned around, turning my back on him. "Leave, please." "Mom, leave." Anthony stood there a few more seconds. Then he left, closing the door softly. I let myself fall on the bed, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't cry, because tears are for when there is still hope, and I didn't have any left. The days after that conversation with Anthony were like living in an embalmed house. Everything was still, cold, dead. He didn't come up to my room anymore, didn't ask how I was, didn't even look at me when we crossed paths in the hallways. Jessica, for her part, moved through the house with a victorious tranquility. She touched her belly constantly, as if reminding me that she had something I could never give Anthony: a future. I spent the hours in my room, looking out the window. I had stopped eating almost completely, just tea and some cracker when my stomach hurt too much. It wasn't that I wanted to let myself die. It was that food no longer had flavor. Nothing did. On June 15th, a week after Dr. Evans' visit, a certified letter arrived. Alice, the maid, brought it up to my room with a worried expression. "Mrs. Margaret, this arrived for you." I took the envelope. It was from the Miller & Associates law firm. I opened it with trembling hands. It was a legal notification. In complicated and formal language, they informed me that a legal capacity evaluation process had been initiated at the request of my son, Anthony Stevens, who alleged concern for my mental and physical well-being. I was cited to a hearing on June 30th. I was recommended to get legal representation. I read the document 3 times. It was real. It was happening. My son was suing me to declare me incompetent. I went down the stairs with the paper in my hand. Jessica was in the living room, watching something on her tablet. Anthony hadn't arrived from work yet. "What is this?" I showed her the document. She looked at it without flinching. "It is what we told you would happen if you didn't cooperate. This is inhumane." "No, this is necessary. You forced us to get here." "I didn't force you to do anything. You decided to destroy me." Jessica left the tablet on the table, looked me directly in the eyes. "Margaret, this is going to happen, whether you want it or not. You can make the process difficult, expensive, and painful for everyone. Or you can accept it with dignity. Retire quietly. Sign the papers accepting you need assistance. Choose the residence yourself, and maintain some relationship with Anthony and with your future grandson." "Future grandson, do you think they are going to let me see him?" "It depends on you, if you cooperate. If you demonstrate you can be a stable grandmother, without dramas, without complaints, of course you will be able to see him. But if you continue with this attitude, if you make this a war, then no. Then we will protect our son from your toxic influence." "Toxic influence," I repeated with bitterness. "That is what I am now. Toxic. You are what you chose to be: victim, martyr, suffering woman. But that doesn't work in this family anymore." Something inside me broke in that moment. Not with noise, in silence, like a dry branch that finally gives way under too much weight. Okay, I said. Jessica raised an eyebrow, surprised. Okay, what? I am going to sign whatever is necessary. I am going to leave. For the first time since I met her, I saw something similar to satisfaction on her face. It is the right decision. But with one condition, the satisfaction vanished. You are not in a position to set conditions. I want to talk to Anthony. One last time. Alone. Without you. Without lawyers. Just my son and me. Jessica stayed thoughtful. Then she nodded. All right, but it will be here, in the living room, and I will be on the second floor. If I hear you are pressuring or manipulating him, I come down immediately. Agreed. That night, when Anthony arrived, Jessica told him I wanted to talk to him. I saw him hesitate. I saw the tiredness in his eyes. But finally he accepted. He sat in the armchair. I sat on the sofa, keeping distance, like two strangers in a waiting room. What did you want to tell me? He asked with a flat voice. I wanted to ask you something, and I need you to answer me with honesty. Can you do that? He nodded. At what moment did you stop loving me? Anthony closed his eyes. Mom, no, please. Just answer me. I need to know, because I still remember the boy who hugged me every night before sleeping, the young man who cried on my shoulder when his father died, the man who promised he would always take care of me. What happened to that Anthony? He grew up. Growing up does not mean forgetting where you come from. I didn't forget. But I can't live in the past either. You do. You live anchored in what was, in what you gave, in what you sacrificed. But I need to live forward, and you tie me down. I tie you down how? With guilt, with expectations, with need. Every time you see me, I feel like you are asking me, was everything I did for you worth it? And I don't know what to answer, because yes, it was worth it, but it was also your decision. I didn't ask you to give up your life. You chose it. I chose it because you were my son, because I loved you. And I love you too. But your love suffocates, Mom. Your love demands. Your love charges. It is not a gift. It is a debt. Every word was like acid on an open wound. I never wanted you to feel that. But it is what I feel, and Jessica helped me see it. She helped me understand that I don't have to carry that guilt, that I have the right to live my own life without asking for your permission, without justifying myself, without feeling bad for being happy. And to be happy, you needed to remove me from your life. I needed space, boundaries, my own family. And yes, that means you can no longer be my priority. I am sorry if that hurts you, but it is the truth. I remained silent, processing, trying to understand how a mother's love, the purest love I knew, had become something ugly in my son's eyes. Do you know what is the saddest part? I said finally. That you are right. In part, yes. I loved you with need, because after your father died, you were the only thing I had left. My only purpose, my only reason to get up every morning. And yes, I made you responsible for my happiness, and that wasn't right. Anthony looked at me, surprised to hear me admit it. But son, you also have your share of blame in this, because you let me believe that we were always going to be together. You made me promises when you were a child, and I, like a fool, took them as guarantees. I leaned on you when I should have learned to stand alone. And now I realize I built my entire life on sand. Mom, I haven't finished. I am going to sign the papers. I am going to leave. I am going to choose a residence, and I am going to leave you in peace. But not because I believe it is the right thing, but because I no longer have the strength to fight. Because I already understood that you cannot force someone to love you, not even if that someone is your son. Anthony brought his hands to his face. I do love you, not in the way I need. And that is okay. Everyone loves how they can. But Anthony, one day you are going to have that baby in your arms, and you are going to love him with all your being. And you are going to give him everything: time, money, attention, sacrifice. And you are going to think it is your responsibility, that it is your duty, but you are also going to do it for love." Anthony looked up. There were tears in his eyes. "And when that child grows up," I continued, "when he is 30, 40 years old, when he forms his own family, you are going to hope, even if you don't admit it, that he remembers you, that he values what you gave, that he includes you in his life. And if one day that son looks at you and says, 'Dad, I grew up, I need my space. You are no longer my priority. You are going to understand this pain.' And in that moment, maybe, you are going to think of me." "Mom, I never—" "Yes, you will. Because that is life. What you do today is done to you tomorrow. And when that day comes, I hope your son is more compassionate with you than you were with me." I stood up. "Tomorrow I sign the papers. Tell your lawyer to prepare everything. I am going to choose Golden Years. It seems like the least depressing place of the three." "Mom, wait." "No, there is nothing else to say. This conversation is over, and in a certain way, our relationship too." I walked toward the stairs. Anthony got up from the armchair. "Does that mean you are not going to want to see your grandchild?" I stopped on the first step. I didn't turn around. "I am going to love him. Of course I am going to love him. But I am not going to repeat the same mistakes with you. I am not going to love with need. I am not going to build my life around a child who one day is going to grow up and forget me. I am going to love him with freedom, without expectations, without demands, without debts." That sounds very cold. No, it sounds wise. It is what I should have done with you from the beginning. I went up the stairs slowly. With each step, I felt I was leaving behind something heavy, something I carried for 38 years. When I got to my room, I closed the door and sat on the bed. I didn't cry, because crying is for unexpected losses, and this, I saw this coming for months, only I didn't want to accept it until now. The next day, Mr. Miller arrived with the documents. I read them, all of them. Every clause, every small letter, I signed. Margaret Stevens accepts to voluntarily enter the Golden Years Assisted Living Residence. Margaret Stevens acknowledges she needs support for daily life activities. Margaret Stevens waives any legal claim on the property located at... I signed, and signed, and signed. My name on dotted lines, my dignity converted into blue ink. When I finished, the lawyer put the papers in his briefcase. "I am sorry it came to this, madam." "You are not sorry. You are going to get paid very well for this." The man had the decency not to respond. Jessica was present during the entire signing. When the lawyer left, she looked at me with something that almost looked like respect. "You made the right decision." "No, I took the only possible decision," which is different. "Anyway, the move will be on Saturday the 28th. You can take what fits in your room at Golden Years. The rest will be donated." Donated my things. You are not going to need them anymore, and here they just take up space. Photographs, books, the clothes Richard gave me, the letters my mother wrote me, the drawings Anthony made as a child, everything. They were going to throw it all away. I want to keep some things, in boxes, in the basement. The basement is going to be remodeled too. It is going to be a game room. Then in the garage. Jessica sighed. 2 boxes, only 2. The rest goes. 2 boxes to contain 65 years of life. Agreed. I spent the next few days packing, choosing which memories deserve to survive. Richard's photographs, Anthony's baby pictures, my Bible, some books, the blanket my grandmother knitted, my mother's rosary. Everything else was left in black garbage bags piled next to my bedroom door. Saturday, June 28th, arrived faster than I expected. 2 men from a moving company came up for my things. 1 suitcase, 2 boxes. That was all that was left of me. I went down the stairs for the last time. Anthony was at the door of his study. He looked at me. I looked at him. We said nothing because there were no words left. Jessica was in the kitchen, drinking green juice. She didn't say goodbye. I walked out the front door, the same door I entered 2 years ago, full of hope, thinking I finally had a home. The moving truck was waiting. I got in. The driver started the engine. I looked in the side mirror. I saw the house moving away, the stone fountain, the willow tree, the windows shining under the afternoon sun, and the last thing I saw was Anthony, standing in the doorframe, hands in his pockets, motionless, watching his mother disappear from his life, as if she had never been there. Golden Years was exactly what the brochures promised: clean, orderly, with well-kept gardens and friendly staff who smiled too much. But no amount of flowers or walls painted in cheerful colors could hide what it really was: a place where people went to wait for death. My room was small: a twin bed, a closet, a desk, a chair, a window that looked out on the parking lot, nothing of the balcony with a view of the garden I had before, nothing of the high ceilings, nothing of space, but it was mine. In a twisted way, it was mine. The first week I didn't leave my room except for mandatory meals. I sat alone at a table in the dining room, ate without flavor, and returned to lock myself in. The other residents tried to talk to me, Mrs. Higgins, a 72-year-old woman with diabetes and arthritis, Mr. Arthur, a widower of 80 with Parkinson's, Mrs. Robinson, who had Alzheimer's, and every day believed she was in a different era of her life, all kind, all lonely, all abandoned by families who no longer knew what to do with them. One afternoon, Mrs. Higgins sat in front of me during lunch. "You are new, right?" "Yes." "How long ago did you arrive?" 1 week. "Ah, you are still in shock then." I looked up, surprised by her frankness. "Shock?" "Yes, we all go through that. The first few days one believes it is temporary, that the family is going to reconsider, that they are going to come for one. But later one accepts that this is permanent." "How long have you been here?" 3 years. "And does your family visit you?" Mrs. Higgins smiled with sadness. "My son came twice the first month, then once every 3 months. Last year he came at Christmas. This year he hasn't come yet. He says he is very busy." "I am sorry." "Don't be sorry. That is how things are. Children grow up, make their lives, and one stays behind, like old furniture." Her words resonated in me because they were exactly what I had lived. And how do you stand it? At first I didn't stand it. I cried every night. I refused to eat. I wanted to die. But later I understood something important. What? That they are not going to change. That one can spend whatever life is left waiting for love that is not going to arrive. Or one can let go and find peace elsewhere. And did you achieve it? Find peace. Mrs. Higgins looked at me with wise, tired eyes. Some days, yes, others no, but it doesn't hurt like before. And that is already something. That conversation stayed spinning in my head for days. Was that what awaited me? Years waiting for visits that wouldn't arrive. Years pretending abandonment didn't hurt. One night, 2 weeks after my arrival, I couldn't sleep. I got up and walked through the hallways of the residence. Everything was silent. Only the snoring of some residents was heard, the hum of the air conditioning, my steps against the linoleum. I arrived at the small chapel on the first floor. I went in. The wooden benches were empty. A crucifix hung on the wall. 2 lit candles barely illuminated the space. I sat on the first bench, and for the first time in weeks I didn't think about my pain. I thought about my life, about the whole path traveled. What had I done with my 65 years I worked? I raised my son. I sacrificed myself. I annulled myself. I lived for another. And when that other decided he didn't need me anymore, I was left empty, without my own identity, without my own dreams, without my own life. Everything I was, everything I had built, was tied to Anthony. And when that tie was cut, I ceased to exist. But there, in that small and silent chapel, I understood something. I was still alive. I still breathed. I still thought. I still felt. And as long as there was life, there was possibility of change. Not to get Anthony back. That was already lost. But to get myself back. The Margaret who existed before being a mother, before being a widow, before being a burden. Who was that Margaret I tried to remember? I went back in my memory. before marriage, before Richard. When I was 20 years old and studying to be a secretary, I dreamed of traveling, of seeing the ocean, of learning French, of reading all the books in the municipal library. Small dreams, simple, but mine. What happened to those dreams? I buried them. Under responsibilities, under sacrifices, under the idea that a good mother does not think of herself. But now I was no longer anyone's mother, at least not in the practical sense. Now I was just Margaret. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. I left the chapel with something strange in my chest. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was something similar to clarity. The next day I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to the residence library. It was small, with donated and old books, but I found an Isabel Allende novel I had never read. I took it. I sat in an armchair by the window and read, page after page, losing myself in a story that wasn't mine, in characters who suffered, loved, lost, got up, and for the first time in months I forgot my pain. The days began to have shape, routine, breakfast at 8, reading until 11, lunch at 1, walk in the garden at 4, dinner at 7, more reading before sleeping. Mrs. Higgins became my frequent company. We talked about books, about recipes, about soap operas, never about our families. That was forbidden territory, mined land. Mr. Arthur taught me to play chess. I was terrible. But he was patient. Chess, he told me one afternoon, is like life. Sometimes you lose important pieces, but the game doesn't end until it ends. While your king is still standing, there is hope. Simple words, but profound. A month passed, then 2. Anthony didn't call, didn't visit, didn't write. At first it hurt. Every day I waited. Every time the reception phone rang, I thought it is him. But it never was. And little by little I stopped waiting. Jessica must have had the baby by September. Boy or girl, I didn't know, because no one told me. I had a grandchild in the world and I didn't even know their name. That should have destroyed me. But instead, something strange happened. It liberated me, because while I had hoped they would include me, I lived tied, waiting, suffering, emotionally depending on crumbs of attention. But when that hope died completely, when I accepted I was never going to receive what I expected, I was free, free of expectations, free of need. Free of that suffocating love Anthony mentioned. In October, 3 months after my arrival at Golden Years, something happened that would change everything. I was in my room, reading, when I heard altered voices in the hallway. I need to see my mother. I demand to see her. I recognized that voice immediately. Anthony. I froze. The book fell from my hands. Sir, please calm down. I am going to verify if Mrs. Stevens wants to receive visitors. She is my mother. She doesn't need to authorize anything. Hurried steps. A knock on my door. It was Rose, one of the nurses. Mrs. Stevens, your son is here. He says he needs to talk to you. Do you want me to let him in? My heart was beating wildly. Part of me wanted to run and hug him. The old part. The part that was still the needy mother. But there was another part. The new one. The one that had learned to let go. Tell him to come in. Rose nodded and left. Seconds later, Anthony entered. He looked terrible. Deep circles under his eyes. Several days' beard without shaving. Wrinkled suit. Nothing like the impeccable man I knew. Mom. I stayed sitting in my chair by the window. I didn't get up. I didn't run to hug him. Anthony. Mom, I need to talk to you. It is urgent. Speak. He ran his hands through his hair. He was nervous, desperate. Everything went out of control. What thing? Jessica, the baby, the house, everything. I stayed silent, waiting. She lost the baby at 12 weeks. It was devastating. I felt a pang of pain. Not for Jessica, for that life that didn't come to be. I am very sorry. After the miscarriage, everything changed. Jessica became different, obsessive, paranoid. She says it was my fault, that the stress of everything that happened with you caused the loss. And what do you think? I don't know. The doctor said it was something natural. It happens. But she doesn't accept it. She blames me. She blames you. She blames everyone. Anthony, why are you here? Because I need your help. The answer left me breathless. My help, after everything that happened. I know I have no right. I know I was terrible to you, but Mom, I am lost. I don't know what to do. Jessica wants a divorce. She says she doesn't love me anymore, that she was only with me for money and status, and now she wants half of everything. The house, the business, everything. I should have felt satisfaction, poetic justice. I told you so. But I didn't feel any of that. I just felt sadness. And what do you expect me to do? I don't know. Guide me. Tell me what to do. You always knew what to do. No, Anthony, I didn't always know what to do. I just did what I could with what I had. I made mistakes, many. And one of those mistakes was making you believe I had all the answers. Mom, please. No, listen to me. You made decisions. You chose Jessica. You chose to remove me from your life. You chose to build a future that didn't include me. And those decisions have consequences, good and bad. Now it is your turn to live with them. So you are not going to help me. I didn't say that, but I am not going to solve it for you either. I am no longer your savior. I am no longer your safety net. You are an adult man, with resources, with education. You are going to find a way to get ahead, like I did when I was left a widow with a small child. Anthony let himself fall on my bed. He put his face between his hands. I ruined everything. Yes, you did. How do I live with that? Like everyone, one day at a time, accepting, learning, growing. He looked up. His eyes were red. I miss you, Mom. Those 3 words, the ones I waited to hear for months. But now, in this moment, they didn't provoke what I expected. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel victory. I didn't feel like I had finally won. I just felt calm. I miss you too, son. But not the Anthony you were with me in those last months. I miss the boy you were, the young man you were. Before success, money, and Jessica changed who you were. Can I get that back? Can I be that person again? I don't know. That is a question only you can answer. We stayed silent for several minutes. Finally, Anthony stood up. Can I come visit you? From time to time. I thought about it. I really thought about it. The Margaret from before would have said yes immediately, would have taken advantage of any opportunity to be close to her son. But the new Margaret, the one who was learning to live without need, knew she had to set boundaries. You can, but with one condition. Which one? That you don't come to unload your problems, that you don't come looking for me to solve your life. If you come, let it be because you really want to see me. Me, your mother, not your counselor, not your savior, just me. Anthony nodded slowly. I understand. And another thing. Don't tell me about Jessica. Don't include me in her drama. I paid a very high price for your marriage. I am not going to keep paying. Agreed. He came closer. For a moment, I thought he was going to hug me, but he just put his hand on my shoulder. Thanks, Mom. Don't thank me. Just learn from all this, from what you lost, from what you did, so that when you have another child, if you have one, you don't repeat the same mistakes. I am going to try. He turned around and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned back. You know, you are right. I am going to have to learn to live with the consequences. And one of those consequences is living, knowing I hurt the person who loved me most in this world. Not the one who loved you most. The one who sacrificed the most for you, which is different. True love doesn't demand sacrifice. It just gives, freely. Anthony left, and I was left alone in my small room at Golden Years. But this time solitude didn't hurt, didn't. Because it was a chosen solitude, a solitude with dignity. That night before sleeping, I took out my Bible. The same one where I had hidden the printed emails months ago. The emails were still there, the evidence of the conspiracy, the proof of how they had manipulated me. I looked at them for a long while, and then, calmly, I tore them up, one by one, in small pieces. Why? Because I didn't need them anymore. Because keeping evidence of past betrayals only keeps you tied to pain. Because forgiving is not forgetting. It is releasing the right to collect. And I didn't want to collect anything anymore. I wanted to live whatever life I had left, in peace. I threw the pieces of paper in the trash can, and with them I also threw away the rage, the resentment, the need for justice. What Anthony and Jessica did to me was unfair, cruel, unforgivable according to many, but I chose to forgive anyway. Not for them, for me. Because carrying hate is like drinking poison expecting the other to die. And I had already spent too much time poisoning myself. It was time to heal. And healing began with letting go, with understanding that true justice doesn't always come from courts or lawyers. It comes from life itself, and life sooner or later always collects its debts. The months followed their course at golden years. October turned into November, November into December. Anthony kept his word. He came to visit me every 2 weeks. At first, conversations were tense, careful, like two people walking on thin ice. But little by little, something began to change. We didn't just talk about him anymore. We talked about books I was reading, about the chess games I played with Mr. Arthur, about the knitting classes I had started taking with Mrs. Higgins. I was changing too. My hair, which I always wore in a tight bun, I now left loose. I had bought new glasses with my pension savings. Modern glasses. With burgundy frames. One afternoon in December, Anthony arrived with a box. "I brought you something." It was a scarf. Mustard color. Hand-knitted. "I saw it in a craft market and thought of you." It wasn't a big deal, but it was a gift. The first in years he gave me without it being Christmas or my birthday. "Thanks, son." We sat in the small garden of the residence. It was cold. I put on the scarf. It fit perfectly. "How are things going?" I asked him. "Complicated. The divorce is difficult." "Is she still asking for half of everything?" "Yes, her lawyer is aggressive. They are alleging she contributed emotionally to the success of the business, that she deserves compensation." "And is it true?" Anthony stayed thoughtful. "I don't know. At the beginning of our marriage, yes. She supported me, gave me ideas, came with me to dinners with clients, but later everything became about her. Her needs, her whims, her image." "When did it change?" "I think when we moved to the big house, when she started living that lifestyle she always wanted. She was no longer my partner. She was the lady of the mansion, the wife of the successful architect." "And you allowed her to become that?" Anthony looked at me surprised. "What do you mean?" "That in a relationship both have responsibility. She became what she became because you allowed it, because it was convenient for you to have a beautiful, elegant wife who looked good at events, just like I allowed you to turn me into the suffering mother, the martyr. We were both accomplices in our own destructions." Anthony didn't answer, but I saw in his eyes that my words had landed. "Mom, how did you learn all this? How did you reach this peace?" It wasn't overnight. It was pain. It was loneliness. It was forcing myself to look in the mirror and accept my part of the blame. It was reading, thinking, talking to people who have also lost. It was understanding that forgiveness is not a feeling. It is a decision you make every day. "Did you forgive me?" The question floated between us like smoke. "I am in the process. Some days, yes. Others, it still hurts. But I don't hate you anymore. And that, son, is already a lot." Anthony nodded slowly. I saw tears in his eyes. "I don't know if I can forgive myself." "Then work on that. Because guilt you don't process becomes resentment, against yourself or against others. And you already saw where resentment leads." We stayed silent, watching the December sun set over the garden trees. "Mom, There is something I need to tell you. Tell me. Jessica is in trouble. Something in his tone put me on alert. What kind of trouble? Financial, legal. It turns out that during our marriage, she took out loans in my name, forged my signature, used properties as collateral without me knowing. I froze. How much money? Over $300,000. My God. And what did she spend it on? Luxuries, clothes, trips, aesthetic treatments. She had a spending addiction I didn't know about. She hid bank statements, opened credit cards in my name. When her family lost money in bad investments, she lent them from our account without telling me. And how did you find out? Her lawyer during the divorce process presented financial documentation, and everything came out there. Accounts I didn't authorize, debts I didn't know existed. When I confronted Jessica, she admitted it. And not only that, she justified herself. She said she deserved that lifestyle, that I owed her that for everything she had endured in our marriage. Endured you. According to her, dealing with you during those months was so stressful she deserved compensation. A bitter laugh came out of my throat. So, I am expensive, very expensive, $300,000. Anthony didn't laugh. He was too devastated. My accountant told me I can sue her for fraud, that I have all the evidence, that she could go to jail, but I don't know if I want to go that far. Why not? Because still, I don't know. A part of me still feels something for her, or maybe I just feel pity or guilt for not noticing sooner. Anthony listened to me well. What Jessica did is a crime. It is not a mistake. It is not a misunderstanding. It is fraud. And if there are no consequences, she is going to keep doing it. If not with you, with another person. I know. But reporting her means everything will come to light. The media, the clients, my reputation. Your reputation is already compromised. The question is, do you prefer to lose money and dignity by staying silent, or do you prefer to do the right thing even if it hurts? Anthony covered his face with his hands. I don't know what to do. Then don't do anything yet. Think about it. Consult with your lawyers. But son, remember something. Protecting the one who hurt you doesn't make you noble. It makes you an accomplice. 2 weeks later, Anthony arrived with news. I sued her for fraud, forgery of documents, misuse of funds. And how do you feel? Terrible, but also relieved, as if I finally did something right after so long doing everything wrong. How did she react? Furious. She called me, screamed at me, told me I was a monster. How could I do that to her after everything we lived together? And what did you answer? Nothing. I hung up. Because I realized something, Mom, that Jessica does the same thing I did to you. What thing? Manipulate with guilt. Remind me of everything she gave in the marriage. Make me feel I owe her something. And for years it worked. But now I see the pattern, and I am not going to fall again. I felt proud. For the first time in a long time, I felt proud of my son. Well done. The following months were a legal whirlwind. Jessica's case advanced slowly. Her family hired expensive lawyers. They alleged Anthony was persecuting her out of spite, that she was the victim. But the evidence was overwhelming. Forged signatures, unauthorized withdrawals, fraudulent loans. In February, the preliminary sentence arrived. Jessica was found guilty of fraud and forgery. She faced 5 years in prison, reducible to 3 with good behavior. Anthony came to tell me that same day. How do you feel? I asked him. Confused. Part of me feels justice was done. Another part feels guilty, as if I had destroyed her life. You didn't destroy her life. She made decisions, bad decisions, and now she faces the consequences. That is not revenge. It is justice. I know, but it hurts anyway. Of course it hurts, because even if someone hurts you, that doesn't mean you stop being human. Pain is part of the process. Feel it. Don't evade it. In March, more news arrived. The house. The house Anthony built for me. The house they took from me. It turned out Jessica had mortgaged it 3 times, without Anthony knowing, using forged documents. The banks were demanding immediate payment. Anthony didn't have that amount of liquid money. His business was okay, but not that okay. The only option was to sell the house. When he told me, I expected to feel satisfaction. Poetic justice. The house they took from me is now being taken from them. But I didn't feel that. I felt sadness, because that house represented a dream that rotted, that got contaminated, but that was once beautiful. I am sorry, son. Me too. I built that house thinking it would be our home forever, yours, mine, my family's. But it was only the setting of our destruction. Houses are just walls. Home is built in the heart. Do you still feel you have a home? I looked around my small room at Golden Years. The bare walls, the simple furniture, the window overlooking the parking lot. Yes, here, in this small room, because here I found peace. And peace, son, is the only home that really matters. The house was sold in April, at a price much lower than it was worth, because the sale was urgent. Anthony managed to pay the debts. He was left with some money, but not much. He had to move to a small apartment in a less luxurious area. His business survived, but he had to reduce staff, close the big office, work from home. One day he told me, I lost everything, Mom. The house, the money, the reputation, the friends who were only there for convenience, everything. Not everything. You still have yourself, and you have me, if you want me. Of course I want you. Then you didn't lose everything. In May, while we were sitting in the residence garden, Anthony told me something else. Jessica tried to commit suicide in jail. My heart stopped. What? She took pills. They found her in time. She is in the psychiatric hospital now. How are you with that? I don't know. I feel pity. I feel guilt. I feel everything and nothing at the same time. Did you go see her? Yes, she didn't recognize me. Or pretended not to recognize me. She is very bad, Mom. Very lost. Anthony, this is important. Nothing Jessica is experiencing is your fault. She made decisions for years, decisions to lie, steal, manipulate, and when those decisions finally had consequences, her mind couldn't handle it. But that doesn't mean you caused her collapse. She destroyed herself. I know rationally, but emotionally, you are going to carry this for a while, and that is okay. But don't let that guilt paralyze you, because if I have learned something, it is this. Life presents you the consequences of your acts, not to punish you, to teach you. We stayed silent. After a while, Anthony spoke again. Do you know what is most ironic? That all this could have been avoided. If I had listened to you from the beginning, if I had seen what Jessica really was, if I had valued what I had before losing it. But you didn't. And you can't live in the what if. You can only live in the now. And in the now, you have the opportunity to be better, to learn, not to repeat mistakes. Do you think I can ever have a family again? Be happy. Yes, but first you have to heal. You have to work on yourself, on your patterns, on your wounds. You can't build something healthy on rotten foundations. How do I do that? Therapy, time, honesty with yourself, and forgiveness towards Jessica, towards me, towards yourself. Anthony looked at me with eyes full of pain. How do you forgive someone who almost destroyed you? Understanding that person is also destroyed, that hurt people hurt, that no one is completely evil, just deeply broken, and that forgiveness is not saying what you did is okay. It is saying what you did was wrong, but I am no longer going to carry the weight of hating you. Did you forgive me completely? I thought about his question. Honestly. Almost. Some days, yes. Others, it still hurts. But every day I get closer, and that son is the best I can give you. In June, exactly 1 year after I moved to Golden Years, Anthony arrived with something under his arm. I have something for you. It was a photo album. But not just any album. It was a new one, with photos I hadn't seen. Photos of Anthony as a baby, which I thought had been lost. Photos of Richard Young. Photos of our little house in the suburbs. Where did you get this? From the basement of the house, Before selling it, I checked every box. I found this among the things Jessica had thrown away. I rescued them, because I realized that throwing away the past doesn't solve anything. It just leaves you empty. I opened the album with trembling hands. There was Richard, my husband, smiling at our wedding. There was Anthony at 3 years old, covered in mud, after playing in the garden. There was me, young, with black hair and bright eyes. Tears ran down my cheeks. "Thanks, son, thanks. No, thanks to you, for not giving up on me, for continuing to love me even when I didn't deserve it." We hugged. And in that hug, I felt something I hadn't felt in more than a year. Hope. Not the foolish hope that everything would go back to how it was before, but the real hope that we could build something new, something different, something more honest. That night, alone in my room, I looked at the photographs one by one, and I understood something profound. Justice doesn't always arrive as one expects. It is not always fast. It is not always obvious. But it arrives. Jessica lost her freedom, her mental health, her reputation. Anthony lost his house, his money, his marriage. I lost my home, my illusion, my role as a needy mother. But in those losses, we also gained something. Jessica maybe will have the opportunity to face her demons in therapy. Anthony learned that material success is worth nothing without integrity. And I learned that my value does not depend on how much others need me. Life always collects its debts, not with revenge, with lessons. And the deepest lessons always hurt. But that pain makes us wise. 2 years after that day, I left the house I once called home. For the last time, I find myself sitting in the same garden of golden years, under the same willow that has seen me cry, heal, and be reborn. So many things have happened, so many changes, so many lessons. Mrs. Higgins passed away 6 months ago, in peace, with a smile on her face. Her son never arrived. But I was with her. I held her hand, told her she wasn't alone. And she wasn't. Because family is not just blood. It is also who chooses to stay when there is no longer obligation. Mr. Arthur is still here. Every afternoon we play chess. He always wins. But I am improving. He taught me that patience in chess, as in life, is the difference between surviving and winning. Anthony comes to visit me every week now, on Tuesdays, without fail. Sometimes he brings coffee and sweet bread. We sit here, in this garden, and talk. We no longer talk about the past as a wound. We talk about the past as history, as something that formed us but no longer defines us. He tells me about his business. It is growing again, slowly, but steady. He learned to be more selective with his clients, not to pursue just money, to look for projects that have soul. 3 months ago, he told me he is dating someone, a woman named Patricia, elementary school teacher, divorced, with 2 children. Simple, easy laugh. She is not like Jessica, he told me. She doesn't care about my car or my clothes. She cares about me. And what do you feel for her? Peace, no fireworks, no drama, just peace. That is mature love, son, the one that remains when the novelty goes. Ching, last week I met her. Patricia came with Anthony, brought her children, a boy of 7 and a girl of 5. The girl sat on my lap and showed me her doll. The boy asked me if I knew how to play checkers. I told them no, but I would like to learn. Patricia looked at me with kind eyes. Anthony told me everything that happened. I want you to know I am very sorry for how they treated you. Thanks, but that is already behind us. Still, a mother should never— Her voice broke. Sorry, I lost my mom 2 years ago and would give anything to have her again, so it breaks my heart to know there were people who had her and didn't value her. Her words moved me, because they came from a genuine place, from someone who knows what it is to lose. Can I ask you something? Patricia said after a moment. Sure. How did you do it? How did you forgive? The question floated in the air like a delicate butterfly. It wasn't a moment. It was a path. Long. Painful. Some days I walked forward, others I went back, but I kept walking. And one day I realized that forgiveness wasn't for them. It was for me, because carrying hate is like drinking poison expecting the other to die. Patricia nodded. Her eyes shone with held tears. "She once called me crazy," I said softly. Years later, I saw that same emptiness in her gaze while she was alone in that hospital. Life always collects its debts. Anthony asked me what I referred to. I told him I had heard from a neighbor at Golden Years who had contacts, that Jessica was still interned in the psychiatric hospital, that her family had abandoned her, that she spent days looking out the window, lost in her own thoughts. "I don't feel triumph," I told Anthony. "I just feel sadness, because she was also a broken person, and no one helped her heal in time." "Do you think I should go see her?" Anthony asked. "I don't know. That is your decision. But if you go, let it be because you need it, not out of guilt." Anthony didn't go, and I understood. Because some wounds need distance to close. This morning, while I drank my tea by the window, I received a call. It was from an unknown number. "Mrs. Margaret Stevens." "Yes. This is Mr. Thompson, from the Miller & Associates law firm." My blood froze. That was the firm that had processed my exit from the house. "What do you need?" "I am calling to inform you about a legal matter that concerns you. Could you come to our offices tomorrow at 10 in the morning?" "What is it about?" "I would prefer to explain it in person. It is delicate." I hung up with a bad feeling. I told Anthony. He insisted on accompanying me. The next day we went together to the office. It was an elegant building downtown, marble floors, perfectly groomed receptionists. They ushered us into a huge office. Mr. Thompson was a man of about 60, with a gray suit and reading glasses. "Mrs. Margaret, thanks for coming. Mr. Anthony, good that you accompany her." "What is this?" Anthony asked with a defensive tone. "Calm down. It is nothing bad. In fact, it is something unexpected." He opened a folder on his desk. 3 years ago, your mother-in-law, Mrs. Martha Stevens, made a will. In it, she left a property in your name, Mrs. Margaret." I was left speechless. Martha, Richard's mother, my mother-in-law. She had died 3 years ago. We were never close, but not enemies either. "What property?" "A cottage in the countryside, with ample land. Mrs. Martha specified in her will that this property was for you, as gratitude for having taken such good care of her son Richard and her grandson Anthony." "But I didn't know anything about this." "The will was opened when Mrs. Martha died, but due to an administrative confusion, you were not notified in time. And then, with everything that happened with your housing situation, the matter remained archived, until now, when I reviewing pending cases. Found this document." I looked at Anthony. He was as surprised as I was. "Does that mean my mom owns a house?" "Exactly. A 3-bedroom house, 2 bathrooms, large garden, in a quiet neighborhood upstate. It is in good condition. It has been rented these years. The rents have been accumulating in an account. Mrs. Margaret, besides the house, you have nearly $50,000 in accumulated rents." I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. A house, money, freedom. "Is this real?" I asked with a broken voice. "Completely real. Here are all the documents. I just need you to sign some papers and the property officially remains in your name." I signed with trembling hands. The lawyer handed me the deeds, the keys, the bank statements. We left the office in silence. Anthony and I looked at each other in the parking lot. "Mom, you have a house." "I have a house," I repeated, still not believing it. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." "Do you want us to go see it?" That same afternoon, we drove to the countryside, an hour and a half in the car. Anthony drove. I looked out the window, seeing how the city turned into mountains, into trees, into cleaner air. The house was on a quiet street, painted terracotta, wooden door, windows with artistic bars. I opened the door with the keys they gave me. We entered. The house smelled a little closed up, but it was clean. The furniture was simple but functional. The kitchen had a gas stove and wooden cupboards. The bedrooms had good light. The back garden had an apple tree and space to plant. I walked through every room, touched the walls, looked out the windows, and for the first time in years, I felt something I had forgotten. I felt I was at home. Not because it was luxurious, not because it was big, but because it was mine, completely mine. Anthony found me in the garden, sitting under the apple tree. "What do you think?" he asked. "I think your grandmother had a good heart, and that maybe everything that happened had to happen for me to get here." "Are you going to move?" "I don't know. I like Golden Years. I have friends there, routine, peace." "But this is yours. You could live here, with total freedom." "Freedom is not in the walls, son. It is in the heart. But yes, I think I would like to spend seasons here, have my own space, invite Mr. Arthur to play chess under this tree, invite you and Patricia with the children on weekends." "Really?" "Sure. This house is big. There is room for everyone. But with boundaries, with respect, with love that doesn't suffocate." Anthony sat next to me. "Mom, are you happy?" The question surprised me, because it had been so long since anyone asked me, not even myself. Yes, not in the way I imagined, not with the perfect family I dreamed of, but yes, I am happy with what I have, with who I am, with what I learned. What did you learn? That true love lets go, that forgiveness liberates, that losses can be gifts in disguise, that it is never too late to start over, that a person's value is not in how much they give, but in who they are, and that sometimes life takes everything from you to teach you that the only thing you really need is yourself. Anthony hugged me, a long, tight, honest hug. "I love you, Mom, and I am so sorry for everything I put you through." "I know, and I love you too, but son, it is time to let go of the guilt, both of us. I let go of the pain, you let go of the guilt, and we build something new, something better. Do you think we can?" "We are already doing it." We stayed there, under the apple tree, until the sun began to set. And in that moment, with the sky painted in oranges and pinks, I understood something that took me 67 years to learn. Happiness is not in being loved how you want. It is in loving yourself enough not to need external validation. It is in letting go of what hurts you, even if it hurts. It is in forgiving, not because the other deserves it, but because you deserve peace. It is in understanding that people do the best they can with the tools they have, and it is in accepting that life always finds a way to balance the accounts, not with revenge, with justice, with time, with lessons that hurt, but that heal. 2 years have passed since that afternoon under the apple tree. Now I divide my time between Golden Years and my house in the countryside. In Golden Years, I have my community, my friends, my routine that gives me structure. In the countryside, I have my freedom, my garden, my space to think and create. I started writing, stories of women who lost and found, who fell and got up, who were discarded and bloomed anyway. Some of my companions at the residence ask me to read them my stories. They cry. They recognize themselves. They say, "That is me." And I tell them, "Yes, that is you. And look how strong you are. Still here, still standing, still with stories to tell." Anthony and Patricia got married 6 months ago. A small wedding in a garden. I was there. Patricia asked me to read a poem during the ceremony. I read one I wrote myself. Love is not possession. It is freedom with roots. It is giving without expecting. It is holding without suffocating. It is falling and helping to get up. It is forgiving without forgetting. It is building bridges, not walls. It is the garden that is watered with constancy, not with storms of intensity. True love hurts, but heals. True love costs, but liberates. And true love remains, not out of obligation, but out of choice. Everyone cried, even me. Patricia's children now, my adopted grandchildren, call me Grandma Maggie. They come to visit me in the country once a month. I teach them to plant, to cook, to knit. I tell them stories, but not of princesses waiting for rescue. I tell them of queens who saved themselves. The other day, little Emma, now 7 years old, asked me, "Grandma, were you ever very sad?" "Yes, my love, very sad." "And how did you get happy again?" I learned that happiness doesn't depend on other people. It depends on me. on my decisions, on my inner peace. And how do you find inner peace? Forgiving, letting go, loving yourself, and understanding that everything that happens to you, the good and the bad, is teaching you something. Emma stayed thoughtful. I want to be like you when I grow up. Like me how? Strong and smiling, even though sometimes you have sad eyes. Her childish observation pierced my heart. Sad eyes are not bad, my girl. They are eyes that have seen a lot, that have cried a lot, but that decided to keep looking forward. Those are the wisest eyes. I heard little of Jessica in these years. Anthony told me she finally left the psychiatric hospital, that her family picked her up, that she moved to another city, that she is in treatment. I don't know if she learned anything. I don't know if she changed. I don't know if she will ever understand the damage she caused. But that is no longer my problem. I did my part. I forgave. I let go. I moved on. The rest is her path, her lesson, her life. Sometimes, in the quiet nights of the countryside, I sit in the garden with a cup of cinnamon coffee, the same one they forbade me to make in that house that no longer exists for me. And I look at the stars, and I think about the whole path traveled. I think of the Margaret of 3 years ago, broken, humiliated, feeling her life had ended, and I look at the Margaret of now, whole, dignified, knowing her life is just truly beginning, because it is never too late to be reborn. It is never too late to find yourself. It is never too late to choose peace over bitterness, and never, never is it too late to understand that your value does not depend on how much others love you, but on how much you love yourself. If my story helps a single woman open her eyes, it will have been worth it. If a single person who is being discarded, forgotten, mistreated by their own family reads this and understands they are not alone, that there is a way out, that there is life after rejection, then everything I lived, everything I suffered, everything I lost, will have had meaning, because pain that is not transformed into wisdom is wasted pain. And I decided not to waste a single tear. Each one of them watered the garden where I now bloom. My name is Margaret Stevens. I am 67 years old, and this is my story, a story of loss, of betrayal, of pain, but also of rebirth, of forgiveness, of silent strength, a story that, I hope, helps you understand something fundamental, that when life takes everything from you, when you think there is nothing left, when the whole world turns its back on you, you still have yourself, and you. My dear friend listening to this, you are enough. You always have been. Always. You just had to lose everything to discover it. May God bless you. May you find your peace. May you learn to let go of what hurts you. And never, never forget your value, because you are invaluable, even if no one else sees it, especially if no one else sees it. Until the next story, until the next life lesson.